We've just done a game about names and what names mean. It's a fascinating thing. I've gone back a bit now, folks. Okay. What's in a name? All names have attached significance, not just personal names, all sorts of names. And I read this little bit from the Bible, from a book I've been reading, about how the names of the months in the Bible, in the Old Testament, are not actually Jewish. I'll just read this section again, if you bear with me. And here it is. The first month of the biblical calendar is Nisan, a good Hebrew name, soaked in arcane meaning and biblical significance. No, actually, it's a Babylonian name, as all the Jewish months are. Uncharacteristically for a book that attaches such meanings to names, the Bible generally doesn't name any month at all, simply referring to them as the first month, the second month, and so on. So why Babylonian names? The rabbis tell us that they're to remind the Jews of the exile in Babylon. This is borne out by the fact that we only start to see names being used in the Bible in reference to events that happened after the return from Babylon. The exile is a really significant event, and we saw the drama of what happened with those three men who were asked to change their names in this new culture. Now, they can't change the culture, but they can change their reactions in that culture. So we're looking at themes as well as we go through Daniel, and the theme today is integrity. And that is to do with his reaction to this new situation. We have got his example of his behaviour, and of course we saw in that drama how he reacted to the fact that he was asked to eat the king's rich food. It's not just Daniel who's an example to us. First of all, let's think about what integrity means. Up there it says, having integrity means that you live in accordance to your deepest values. You're honest. This isn't from the Bible. This is just off the internet. You're honest with everyone. You always keep your word. Integrity is a highly valued trait, especially in leaders. When you live with integrity, you're more likely to be considered for important promotions and leadership positions. I don't think the Bible would necessarily say that, but it makes you think, doesn't it? Living with integrity basically is, it does what it says on the can. So we go around saying, well, we don't, but people think we go around saying that we're Christians. We certainly admit to being Christians. Do we do what it says on the can? And Daniel actually lived his life with integrity, and he wasn't swayed by what was going on around him. In fact, he took a stand, and he took it to the test. And he said to Ashpenaz, all right, give us a bit of a break. We'll eat just vegetables. And then if God's God, at the end of that, we'll see what's what. And of course, he and his friends ate vegetables instead of these rather rich feasts that he could have had. And at the end of the time, remember in the drama it said they were better looking, that's what the Bible says in Daniel, better looking, healthier individuals than all the others around, which is interesting, isn't it? I don't believe that Daniel is a book about vegetarianism, by the way. It's a book about integrity. And these first 6 chapters, certainly. So I'm not having just had bacon butties for breakfast. I don't think I better say that. It is a book about integrity, though. And putting God, in a sense, to the test. Really saying, I believe in this God, and he can deliver me from this situation. There's some more modern examples of people who... Christians who've actually acted with integrity. And I looked around at these people. Where's the next slide, David? Next one after that, sorry. Do you know that guy there who's interviewed in Christianity magazine? Do you know who it is? Sorry, it's a bit dark. Yes? His name? Ah. So we do names, everything did as well. His name is Tim Farron. And he was the leader of the Liberal Party. And he is a Christian. And he said something I'll show you in a minute. What about this lady down here? Staying with politics, who's she?
Scottish, yes.
She's Scottish, that's not a profession or a disease or anything like that. But what is she? She was the SNP. Do you know her name? Braveheart. No. We were just saying before breakfast how we forget names. I know her name very well, but I can't remember it. Anyway, this is what they say. I'll come back to me in a minute. Next picture. Tim Farron interview. Why I put Christ ahead of my career. The politician tells Sam Hales how the trials and tribulations he experienced while leading the Liberal Democrats have enabled him to be more open about his faith. He also explains how reading books on prophecy and apologetics played a key part in his decision to become a Christian. That's her, Kate Forbes. And she says, Kate Forbes says people are becoming fearful expressing their faith. The lingering sense of shock Kate Forbes still feels at the scale of the backlash against her during the race for Scotland's highest political office is very clear. The 33-year-old had been on maternity leave from her role as Scotland's Finance Secretary when Nicola Sturgeon suddenly said she was quitting as the First Minister of the SNP in February. Ms Forbes was considered a front-runner to replace Mr Sturgeon, but within days of announcing her candidacy, she found herself at the centre of a political storm about her religious views. In response to interview questions, she said the idea of having children outside of marriage conflicted with her Christian faith and confirmed that she was anti-abortion. Ms Forbes also said she would not have voted for same-sex marriage if she'd been a politician in 2014 when the law was passed. That's death, isn't it? Death for a politician. Absolute end of career. But she considered God more worthy than going down the political path. And she stood up for what she believed. That is acting in integrity. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed with Tim Farron because he wasn't very immediate in his response to things and didn't really come out immediately to say what he really felt as a Christian, but he subsequently did. So, bless him, I think this must be a very difficult situation to be in. She had no hesitation. Right from the outset, she knew there was a conflict and she entered into that debate right away. Sorry?
She just said she was a woman.
Right. Yes, she is a woman. Yes. Thank you. I prepare my messages with the help of the midweek group, and they did give me some ideas, John, didn't they? And here are some of the ideas that they said in thinking about this. So we looked at those two people who are examples of people of God acting with integrity. And I don't know if it was you, John, or Vernon, but you mentioned something else. This is the next picture. Yes, this film. Has anyone ever seen it? Hacksaw Ridge. The extraordinary true story of a conscientious objector, Desmond T. Doss. That's is that the actor? Yeah. And Andrew Garfield was the person who saved 75 men in Okinawa during the bloodiest battle of World War II without firing a single shot, believing that the war was just but killing was nevertheless wrong. He was the only American soldier in World War II to fight on the front lines without a weapon. As an army medic, Doss single-handedly evacuated the wounded near enemy lines, braving enemy fire and putting his own life on the line. He was the first conscientious objector to ever win the Congressional Medal of Honor. Now, that guy put his faith on the line. There was some confusion in our group as to what he was. He actually was a Seventh-day Adventist. He was not a JW. Whoever said that wasn't you, John. Somebody else. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and it's a very standard Christian denomination. And he put his faith on the line and stood up for what he believed.
Andy, can I just say something about that?
Yes, yes, of course you can.
The thing that really affected me about this film was that at the beginning, everyone was taking the mickey out. And at the end, they were all set to go into battle. And they refused to go because this fellow was praying. And his troops, no matter what they were, they just refused to go. And took this bloke and got off his knees, basically. And then they were quite happy to follow him into battle.
Wasn't that amazing?
All of those who stayed for the army as well.
Really? So that's a very good example of someone acting in integrity and God honouring that. That's very good. So, there's some modern examples. We've got Daniel as an Old Testament example of doing what it says on the tin. I'm going to finish off with just what is the takeaway that we've got from Daniel chapter 1. Well, I'm just going to point out three things. And these are they. First of all, verse 8 of chapter 1 says this. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in this way. The word that sort of leapt out the page for me was Daniel resolved not to do something. It wasn't a spur of the moment decision, it's what governed the rest of his actions. His principle was, I'm not doing that. I'm resolved not to do that. There's a slide up here somewhere, David, just coming up. I think it's number 5. If you type in 5 and enter, that will do it. Number 5. Keep going. That's it. Yeah, oh, back. We call it nailing your colours to the mast. Oh, that's a funny expression, isn't it? What does it mean? Look it up. It says, nail one's colours to the mast. To refuse to cease or surrender because lowering a ship's flag was a customary indication of surrender. This nautical phrase emphasises the resolve of a ship's crew. We will nail our colours to the mast and fight on. What do I mean by that? Well, in this sort of context, what does it mean to nail your colours to the mast? Well, we all know the biggest opportunity we got of actually saying that we're a Christian to somebody is what? After a year's knowing them, or when we've known them for maybe a decade or so? Straight away. Because, simple as this, you'll never get the opportunity like it again. So you nail your colours to the mast. Not in an aggressive way. Well, I'm a Christian, so I won't be touching that. That's a good way of closing down a conversation, as you all know. But actually, in a loving, humble way of saying, well, I'm a Christian. I don't tend to do that sort of thing. I don't do that sort of thing. But we might tentatively say it in that way. But you nail your colours to the mast at the beginning of a relationship. And that is why it leads to some awkward times. Like, for instance, in choosing boyfriends and girlfriends and things like that. Are you, not suggesting any of you should do this now. Most of you have long since been married. But it is more difficult to sort things out further down the line, when you come to your marriage day and think, I never said that I was a Christian, I should have perhaps said that, Too late. It's too late. Do it at the beginning. When I was in Swindon, I went to a church where the vicar said, I think it's important for 12-year-olds, you listen to this, Talisa, to pray about who they're going to marry. And if they're going to marry. It is important. If it's such an important decision to get married, it's something you should be praying more about. And resolving that you will marry someone who loves the Lord. It's hard, and it's true to every relationship we have. We've got to nail our colours to the mast. Verse 17 has two other things I wanted to say. So I said about Daniel's resolving, but verse 17 says, to these 4 young men, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I can't do their original names, it's too odd. God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. We have to recognize what God gives us and stick to it. David Paulson said this last week in that video. Work at it. So we recognize God's given me this gift. What am I doing with it? We recognize this is a God-given gift. It's not going to be that you'll be perfect at that gift. But you recognize what he's given you and you stick with it. And the other thing I want to say from verse 17 was this. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. It's important to know God's potential to overrule the natural. Because you could say, well, he was given a good gift of knowledge and he could learn and things like that. And he did learn all that Babylonian culture and stuff, all that stuff. He learnt about it. That's just hard work, and you've got to do hard work. But also, God gave him a special gift, which only he could have given. You cannot interpret someone's dreams without even hearing what the dream was. There's no book in the world that tell you how to do that. God gave something over and above the natural. And we have to recognize that God has a potential to overrule the natural. He has a potential to give us a special ability. So what should we do? Well, we should ask for it. But if he doesn't appear to give us that, let's not worry about it. I wish I was good at doing this, that, and the other. No. Just accept what God's given you and use it. I'm going to finish our time together by just asking for our lives to be lives of integrity, like Daniel's was. Lives of integrity. If you'd like to close your eyes now in prayer, and I'll just remind you of this non-biblical quote that I put up there. Having integrity means that you live in accordance to your deepest values. You're honest with everyone. You always keep your word. Integrity is a highly valued trait, especially in leaders. The world says when you live with integrity, you're more likely to be considered for important promotions and leadership positions. And God says, when you live with integrity, you reflect my nature to the world. We will nail our colours to the mast and fight on, they will never capture us. Lord, help us to nail our colours to the mast every day for you, especially in those new relationships that we have from time to time. Help us to be your ambassadors for your glory. Amen. Thank you for listening, everybody. Twice in some cases. Charlie, are you going to lead us in some more worship before we finish?
This is not coming.